All right, Andrew, here we go.
Open eye, feel the waves cut through me, hypnotized by the sounds I'm breathing in. Hold tight, chemicals collide. Hold tight, hold tight, hold tight. Dripping lights paint the skies, all because of you. Dripping lights paint the skies, only you can make me move. You can make me move. Can make me move. You can make
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about the team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, guys, any...
All right. What's going on, everybody? Well, show. I think you guys know the drill by now. That's Andrew Marisi. I'm Carter Bentavenga. We are your two co-hosts. We cover everything in the world of hockey and in the NHL. Yeah, so I guess first things first. It's been a while since we've actually put an episode out. I believe it's been around a week. So, Andrew, a lot has happened. But first of all, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. Just came back from the gym, trying to lose some weight. Haven't been feeling that great, but now that I've been hitting the gym, feeling a lot better. But other than that, I've been doing all right.
Yeah, it's always good to hear. And I guess, well, first of all, I do want to get into our streaming schedule a little bit. So obviously, those of you who have been following our podcast on this network know that we stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And if you didn't know that, you could just look at the little yellow thing scrolling at the bottom of the screen right there. But we talked to the producers of the network, and I think we both came to the agreement that, we'll still be putting out content. Don't worry. I know a lot of you like to listen to our show, but there's just not that much to talk about now that the off seasons are rolling around. So we'll be going around, I would say, once a week, maybe twice to breaking. But from now on, the pre released until more up. Oh, well, McDonald's Wi-Fi again. Stay with me, folks. But so we'll be going live about once a week. Usually it'll be on Friday. Work some different things out. So with that said, Andrew, 1 week ago, the Stanley Cup playoffs were still in full swing. The Canadiens forced Game 5 in a game that they really shouldn't have. I don't want to say they shouldn't have won. I think they kind of, got lucky with some of the bounces that they had. But at the end of the day, it wasn't enough to force a Game 6 anyway. Tampa Bay wins the Stanley Cup in a 1-0 win in Game 5. And I guess, first of all, what are your thoughts on this Stanley Cup final series? And also, what are your thoughts on Andrei Vasilevsky taking home the Conn Smythe Trophy? Do you think that was deserved for him?
Yeah, I mean, Tampa was just a great team. I mean, I think basically everyone knew coming into the series that Tampa was going to win, even though I think, everyone kind of doubted the Canadiens. And I think pretty much every other series, we all thought Toronto was going to take that easily. I'm pretty sure everyone thought Winnipeg was going to take it easily, especially after sweeping the Oilers. And then, everyone thought that Vegas, was going to, easily, beat them, but that wasn't the case. But I mean, Vegas is just too stacked of a team. When you have guys like Nikita Kucherov, Steven Stamkos, Braden Point, Victor Hedman, Andrei Vasilevsky, I think it was just, pretty much taken, that they were going to win. But I mean, Vasilevsky, I mean, what much can you really say about him? I mean, he is the best goaltender in the NHL. Obviously, winning the Conn Smythe, I think it was well deserved, especially after another shutout performance in a series clinching game. I believe that is now 5 straight for him, dating back to last Stanley Cup final against Dallas, where it was a 2-0 win. But yeah, I mean, Vasilevsky, he's just the best goalie in the NHL. I mean, I remember, I think 2 years ago, he won the Vezina, but everyone was like, he might be a little overrated and whatnot. But I mean, when it comes to the playoffs, he's just a monster. I mean, there's really no stopping him. But I mean, congrats to Canadians though, making it all the way to the Stanley Cup final. I believe that was most or all of their first Stanley Cup final that they've ever had. Obviously, it was Carey Price's first Stanley Cup final. Obviously, it would have been really, really nice to see him win a cup, after all of the pain he's been through, as a Canadian. But, I mean, yeah, it's just well-deserved for the Lightning.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. It's a little bit, it hurts a little bit knowing how close the Islanders were again. But I think at the end of the day, Tampa, this team is something else, man. And, I think that we'll be looking back on this team in a few years and, well, not a few years, but, eventually we'll be looking back on this team and seeing quite a few Hall of Famers on this roster. I mean, I think that, I'm sure Hedman and Stamkos will find the way, in there. I'm drawing a blank. Kucherov, I think, will find a way in. Vasilevsky's really making himself a solid case to get in. I even think a guy like Braden Point, the longer he plays in the league, the more he gets recognized, on an individual level. If he maybe picks up a few big individual awards, then maybe he could find his way in as well. But I do want to talk about this really quickly. This was an update that was put out about 2 or 3 days ago. This was from Julian Breezewall, the general manager of the Tampa Bay Lightning. And this was just about injury updates throughout the course of the playoffs. Victor Hedman played with a torn meniscus, suffered back on March 30th. His recovery period is around 3 to 4 weeks. Barclay Goodrow and Ryan McDonough both played through broken hands in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Nikita Kucherov suffered a non-displaced rib fracture against the Islanders. And as you know, I think we all know Alex Killorn faced a pretty big injury in the Stanley Cup final, but it revealed that he actually had a broken fibula in 2 different pieces. So he actually had to get a rod put into his fibula in order to, in order to even have the possibility of coming back to play. So, and it also says all players are expected to be healthy for the start of training camp, but that's wild, man. Like some of these injuries that these guys play through just to even try to win a Stanley Cup, it's honestly incredible. I mean, I'd never be able to do it, but.
No, I mean, when we have our roller games, I'll probably like twist my ankle and I'll be like, oh, I'm out. I'm done for the game. Like I can't deal with this. So, so seeing these guys play through, major injuries, it's really amazing. I mean, that's really why hockey's the best sport. You really don't see it in a whole lot of other sports. I mean, you maybe see it in football from time to time, but I mean, you see pitchers in the MLB getting a blister on their finger and they're out for like 2 weeks. These guys in the NHL, you break an arm, or in Kucherov's case, you break a rib and you're back the next game. So, I mean, it's just really, good to see, not good, but, it's just tough to see what they go through. But, I mean, for them to handle it and, again, just to possibly win the Stanley Cup, nothing's granted in the NHL. So, just to have a chance of the win of the Stanley Cup and play through all these injuries, they're one hell of a person.
I'd have to agree with that. Yeah, I mean, I remember watching the playoffs a few years ago. Well, it wasn't a few years ago. It was 2013, I believe, when the Bruins went on that Stanley Cup final run. And I remember the news coming out after that Bergeron had played with like a lung puncture or something like that. He had like a hole in his lung. Like, that's insane to me. Like, this is an injury that you get in a serious car accident, and Patrice Bergeron played through this to have a chance to win a Stanley Cup. It's honestly unreal. I mean, hockey players are honestly like nothing, like no other athlete in this world. So, props to everybody. I mean, props to the Tampa Bay Lightning for winning the Stanley Cup again. If you had to put money on it, do you think Tampa gets the infamous three-peat done, or do you think because they're going to lose some pieces? I mean, with the expansion draft, with free agency, they're bound to lose some pieces. So,
yeah, I mean, obviously, I believe John Cooper said, after the final, he said this team's going to look a lot different next year. And, he knows that they were 18 million over the cap space. So, I mean, you're going to have to trade some players away. It would be, I don't know, Killorn, Johnson. I'm just trying to think of some other names. Obviously, I believe Goudreau and Coleman are free agents. So they're probably most likely going to be gone. But I mean, seeing the way that this team has just been playing, I think they do have a very good shot at three-peating. I mean, I really can't remember the last time that it happened. Was it the Islanders where they three-peated? Was that the last time?
I think it was, yeah. Pretty
sure.
So
that was in the early 80s. So if we are able to see that, I mean, I think that would just be confirmed that would be a dynasty. We've seen, a couple dynasties in the past, with the Blackhawks and, I'm just trying to think of other teams. I don't know, maybe Detroit.
The Penguins in there from
the Penguins
16, 17.
back to back. So I mean, I think if they win one more in the next 2 years, I definitely call them a dynasty. But I mean, I do think they have a good shot.
I mean, I would argue Tampa's okay. Over the last 2 years, yeah, I would call Tampa a dynasty. But I mean, overall, they've made the playoffs consistently. I think they've only missed the playoffs like one time over the course of the last. I don't even know. Let's go back to 2015, just as like a kind of measuring stick, right? Over the course of that time, you made the Stanley Cup final 3 times. You won twice. You made the playoffs every single year except for 2017, I think, was when they missed. They made the conference final in 15, 16, 18, 20, and 21. I mean, you had an insanely good team in 2019 that, got swept by the Blue Jackets. I mean, I would argue that Tampa's making a case to have that dynasty label put on a lot sooner than a lot of people would want to admit. So, by the way, I don't mean to be that guy, but I do just want to talk about this really quick. What is that garbage from Nikita Kucherov in that interview? Like after they won the cup, he's like, "Oh, Montreal finals was last round or whatever." Like, dude, come on, really? Like,
I think that was him just being absolutely plastered. I mean,
I think it is. And,
I think if he was sober, I don't think he would say that.
Well, but, you never know. You never know.
That is true. You never know. But I mean, I don't know. I think it's just a case of a guy getting too much to drink and just not knowing what he's saying.
They should have a rule where you're not allowed to interview anyone who's drunk out of their mind. But, I guess that's not in the current NHL Writers Association handbook. So they'll have to make some changes to that. But, yeah, I mean, I guess, give credit where credit's due. Tampa had a good run. They're I know that John Cooper went on Spittin' Chicklets the other day, and he's like, he said something along the lines of like, we're 11 series behind the Isles. Okay, pal. And you're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy. I had to throw in a meme in there, just for old time's sake. But yeah. So again, congrats to Tampa. You guys are a solid team. We'll see what happens next year. It would be entertaining to see them win a third straight Stanley Cup, but at the same time, what I like about the NHL is that you have different winners every year, so we'll have to see what happens with that. But again, congrats to everybody in Tampa. And yeah, let's move on here really quick. I guess we were talking about the Blackhawks being a kind of modern day dynasty. Now, we look back on that Blackhawks team, right? And obviously they've started to rebuild a little bit. You think of some of the names that are left on the Blackhawks from that run: Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane. And that list did include Duncan Keith up until about a few days ago. He has been traded to the Edmonton Oilers. This broke on Monday. And the full trade, there was a little bit added to the trade after the fact that it was actually put through. But now going to the Edmonton Oilers is Duncan Keith and forward Tim Soderlund. He's an AHL player. You really don't have to worry about him. And then to the Blackhawks, defenseman Caleb Jones and a conditional 2022 third-round pick. The condition on that is it actually becomes a 2022 second-round pick if Edmonton wins at least 3 rounds and Duncan Keith is top 4 on the Edmonton blue line in ice time. So, yeah, I mean, Andrew, what are your well, first off, what are your immediate thoughts on this trade? I know you mentioned before the show that you have a grade for this deal itself. So I guess if you want to throw that in there, then be my guest. But what are your thoughts on this move for both sides, really?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm the Oilers, I just really don't understand it. I mean, you're getting an aging defenseman in Duncan Keith. Don't get me wrong, he is one of the greatest defensemen in NHL history. I mean, I believe he has 3 rings. I believe he has 1 Conn Smythe, and I think 2 Norris trophies, to his resume. But I mean, he's 37 years old right now, and he's just regressing every year. And you're giving up a solid young defenseman in Caleb Jones, he hasn't done that much in his career so far, but he definitely has the upside to do something in his career. So, I mean, if I'm the Oilers, I really don't understand this. I know Ken Holland after the trade, basically said like, oh, everyone was criticizing him, and he was like, oh, what do you want me to get him for free? I mean, you could have gave up someone else, maybe like a James Neal, for cap space, and also in the trade, there was no salary retained. And I believe Keith is making just under $6 million. If I'm correct about that, I'm not 100% sure. But I mean, if I'm the Oilers, I really don't like this trade. But if I'm the Blackhawks, I really like this trade. You're swapping out a 37-year-old defenseman for a very young, defenseman in Caleb Jones, who definitely has the upside to be a very good defenseman. So, I mean, if I'm the Blackhawks, I'm giving that a B+, for the trade. Again, really good upside, for Caleb Jones possibly. And if Edmonton does win those 3 rounds and Keith is top 4 in ice time, they get a second-round pick out of it. And if I'm Edmonton, I'm giving this D+, C-, that range. I mean, again, I don't like it that much. I mean, you'll probably get another, maybe 2 years out of him. Out of Duncan Keith.
I even think that's a bit generous.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know what his contract is looking like right now. I'm gonna look real quick. In 23-24, he's gonna be a UFA. So he has 2 more seasons left on his deal. I think that would probably be it for him, and not even just with the Oilers, probably just for his career. So giving up a player, like Caleb Jones, who, again, still a very young defenseman who he's going to be an RFA next year, and he's only 24 years old. So, again, I just don't like this deal for the Oilers.
I'm not a big fan of it. I mean, like you said before, I don't get the point of looking to trade for a guy like Duncan Keith. Like, yeah, you can look at what he did with the Chicago Blackhawks all you want, but at the end of the day, this isn't the same player that that won those Norris trophies with the Blackhawks, that was so dominant in that 2015 playoff run. I don't understand. First of all, I don't understand why you couldn't have at least retained salary if you're Edmonton, if you're trying to. I get the Blackhawks really wanted to kind of shed salary in terms of trading Duncan Keith, but I mean, that's a pretty big contract to take on, especially for a defenseman who's in his late 30s. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of it. Although we've heard rumors that Oscar Klefbom might not play this upcoming season due to a shoulder injury. You're replacing Oscar Klefbom, who's one of the most solid young defensemen, first of all, that's on your team. And I think if he played more, I think if he was able to play the season, he has the potential to be one of the better defensemen in the league. But you're going to replace a guy like that with an aging, like he's not what he used to be. I mean, Duncan Keith he's okay, but he's not gonna, he's not really gonna do much, I don't think. I mean, I don't know. And also, I want to get your thoughts on this. Do you think the whole, it's been rumored that Chicago wants to get Caleb Jones in order to lure his brother Seth into coming to the Chicago Blackhawks. So, do you think there's any truth to that? Do you think do you think Seth Jones would want to be a Chicago Blackhawk? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I definitely think it's possible, but I mean, if it's a trade that's going to happen, I really don't think he has, much say in the trade. I don't know if he's going to be a free agent. I can check right now. Unless if I don't know right off the bat. He's going to be a free agent next season. So, but I mean, it's basically guaranteed that he's going to get traded. I believe some of the top suitors to get him are the Blackhawks, Stars, or the Panthers. So, I mean, it's definitely possible that the Blackhawks could acquire him. What could they return in that or give away in that trade?
I do have an update on that because Elliot Friedman put this out recently. So ready? This is Columbus's asking price for Seth Jones. It's starting out with Kirby Dach. Ready? You're making that face now, but listen to this. Ready? Kirby Dach, a draft pick, which I'm assuming would be a first or a second, and one of Alex DeBrincat or Adam Boqvist.
No way.
It looks like you're not trading Seth Jones then. At least not the Blackhawks.
No, I mean, you look at a guy like DeBrincat, who's honestly been pretty underrated, I feel like, in his career so far. I mean, I don't even think people realize that 2 seasons ago, he hit 40 goals. He had 41 goals and 35 assists for 75 points. I mean, I don't think a lot of people, knew that he did that. And even this past season, 32 goals, 24 points, 56 assists. He's going to be a solid player for the Blackhawks. If they want to rebuild, why would they want to, get rid of him? Again, the 2 players you mentioned before that were still on that 2015 Cup team is Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews, who, again, are aging. Obviously Kane is still a very, very good player, but, I mean, Toews has dealt with a lot of injuries. He didn't play this last season. I believe he's expected to play next season. But, I mean, I think that's just too much to give up. And Boqvist, too. He's a very young, solid defenseman. I mean, he's going to be an RFA next year. And his stats weren't the greatest. I mean, 35 games played, 2 goals, 14 assists for 16 points and a -7. But, I mean, he still has the upside to be a very, very good defenseman for the Blackhawks. So, I mean, if I'm Chicago, I don't want to make that trade.
I wouldn't want to make that trade either. And if you're looking at, like with Kirby Dach and Alex DeBrincat, I'm not trying to compare these guys to the careers of Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane, but Dach and DeBrincat are basically your guys going into the future. Like, you're switching from the Toews and Kane era to the Dach and DeBrincat era. As crazy as that's going to sound, I mean, and Adam Boqvist, he's one of the more solid younger defensemen in the game right now. He's still coming into his own as, a young puck-moving defenseman. He's your Duncan Keith of the future. Like, I don't know what the Blue Jackets think Seth Jones is, I don't know where they think his value is as of right now, but I don't like that at all if I'm the Chicago Blackhawks. I mean, if I even hear if I hear Doc's name brought up, I feel like that's a little iffy either way. But if you're telling me that you want me to give up, like if I'm the GM of the Blackhawks, right, you want me to give up my 3rd overall pick from, what was it, 2 years ago? 2019, 2 years ago? Yeah. And either one of my best goal scorer or my best young puck-moving defenseman and a draft pick, I'm hanging up the phone. I'm not doing that. Like that's insane. So I don't know. I mean, I think Seth Jones would be a good fit with the Blackhawks, but I mean, if the asking price is that high, then I don't know if I really want to make that trade. So I don't know. I mean,
if that trade was for Eichel, I completely understand. I understand. I mean, Eichel's one of the better players in the league. He's a good top centerman. So obviously you're going to have to give away some young prospects. But I mean, Seth Jones, again, hasn't had the greatest season, last season. So, but I mean, he's still a very good defenseman, top 20 in my opinion. But yeah, it's just too much.
I'd have to agree with that. And we're going to go on and move on here, I should say. We got a little bit of retirement news to talk about. Nashville Predators goaltender Pekka Rinne has officially retired at age 38. Pred's 2004 8th round draft pick, back when there was an 8th round in the NHL draft. The netminder spent 15 seasons with the big club, posting a record of 369, 213 and 75 in 683 games played, 60 shutouts, and a career 917 save percentage, as well as a 2.43 goals against from 2005 to 2021. Andrew, it's kind of sad to see. I mean, Pekka Rinne was one of the better goaltenders, at least in our generation of hockey, anyway. So, definitely a little bit bittersweet. But I think the timing was right. I mean, he was starting to dip in his play over the last couple of seasons, and I definitely think that now is kind of a good place to kind of call it a career, and just kind of ending your career on the right note. So,
yeah, I mean, again, they weren't really using him that much. I mean, obviously they have, a very good young goaltender right now in UC Saros. But yeah, I think this is just good timing for him. I'm sure he wants to spend time with his family. His past probably 2 seasons, or he hasn't spent probably that much time with them, just because of, COVID rules and stuff like that. So, but I mean, what a great career. I mean, I believe he only has 1 Vezina to his name. Could have 2. Could be wrong about that. I don't know. He had a shot in the 2017 Stanley Cup final when they did play against Pittsburgh. Obviously ended up short in 6 games, but I mean, still one heck of a career for him. I mean, he's obviously known as one of the better goaltenders, in our generation. I'd probably put him in the same, talk as, like Henrik Lundqvist or something like that. He was just that good, pretty underrated in my opinion. I don't think he's, as good as Lundqvist, but still, one of the better goalies. At least from, what we've saw. Obviously, he scored a goal 2 years ago, his first career goal, against the Blackhawks. So that was pretty cool to see. But yeah, I mean, congrats to him. Good luck on retirement, and just be well.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And, it's unfortunate that we couldn't see him win a Stanley Cup, but I think, I definitely think this was the right place to kind of call it quits. And, it was pretty cool to, especially, when you look back on the regular season, that last game of the regular season, Nashville actually shut out Carolina 5-0. That was Pekka Rinne's last career game. So ended his career with a shutout. That's always cool to see. And, definitely wishing Pekka the best of, the best of the best, I guess you could say, in terms of his retirement. Do you think we see Rinne maybe come back with the Preds in kind of like a player development role or something like that? Or
I mean, it's definitely possible. We see it with a lot of, not even goalies, but just, a lot of players, do this type of stuff. I believe the Sedin twins, got hired as a player development, from the Canucks. So, I mean, it's definitely possible, but who knows?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. We're going to move on here. We have a lot of news to catch up on. So, one of the bigger pieces of news actually broke earlier in the week that the Minnesota Wild, we're going to move on to another team in the Central Division. Minnesota buying out the contracts of Zach Parise and Ryan Suter. And wow, I remember I woke up on trying to think, today's Friday, so this was probably either Tuesday or Wednesday that this news broke. And I remember waking up and thinking, like, wow, I mean, I remember they signed these 2 massive contracts on the same day. And a little ironic that they wound up getting bought out on the same day too. So, I guess Andrew, let's get going with your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, they signed a 13-year, $98 million deal, together, and I think pretty much everyone, thought, like, probably when they signed that, like, wow, that's a pretty long deal. I mean, I can't really remember the last time we've seen, this big of a deal and was like, oh, wow, this is great. This is just what we wanted. We've seen other big contracts and, sports in general, like Rick DiPietro, like there's some guy in the Mets, but Bobby Bonilla, I believe is what his name was. And, these teams are still paying them to this day. So, I mean, but I think this is good for the Wild. I think the reason why they were doing this, obviously, for Kaprizov and Kevin Fiala, and possibly to get to acquire Jack Eichel, free some cap space for him. I believe he's making $8 million a year, Eichel, or $11 million, one of the two. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Eichel's making 10, I think.
He's making 10. Okay. So actually, I can check real quick right now. He is making.
I'm pretty sure he signed an 8x10 with Buffalo.
It is 10 million. Yeah, so he did sign a $10 million deal. So I mean, possibly a move for Jack Eichel. I mean, I think the Wild do have assets to trade for him. But again, we really don't know. But I mean, they had a solid career in Minnesota. You know, I wouldn't say it was, great or, amazing. You know, I definitely wouldn't consider them one of I wouldn't consider Parise one of the top players in Wild history. I would probably consider Suter probably one of them just because, he was always a solid defenseman for them. Having good seasons and stuff like that. I don't think he won a Norris Trophy at all. I mean, I could be wrong about that. I'm actually gonna look it up right now.
Suter, I don't think is won a Norris Trophy.
I don't think so. He was a finalist. So no Norris to his name, but I mean, still good careers in Minnesota. But I think it was just time to go. Again, like the Rene, I think it was just good timing for them. They're turning into a young team right now. They're turning into one of the more exciting teams if Kaprizov and Fiala stay. They did just sign up. They did sign Joel Eriksson a couple of weeks ago, so they have him locked up. So now they just need to sign Kaprizov and Fiala.
Well, see, here's the thing with that, and it's going to be interesting to see if they can make a move for Jack Eichel. I know Bill Guerin was pretty active in saying that, they're definitely going to present an offer to Jack Eichel, but I don't think it's. He said specifically he doesn't want to trade his future, kind of tear the team apart to get a guy like Jack Eichel, which is understandable, but it's going to depend on what Buffalo's asking for. I think Buffalo really kind of holds, kind of drives the bus here in terms of what they want to get for a guy like Jack Eichel. And one thing that I do want to note, you mentioned that they have to re-sign Kaprizov. You mentioned they had to re-sign Fiala. If they were to bring in a guy like Jack Eichel, he would be around, we said $10 million. This is something that I just want to bring up really quickly. So after the buyouts of Zach Parise and Ryan Suter, ready? They're going to have around $4.7 million next year, which isn't too bad. The 2022-23 offseason, it goes up to $12.7 million in dead cap. And in both 23-24 and 24-25, it's $14.7 million. That's all cap space that counts against the salary cap, but you can't use because it's just you can't go into it because of the buyouts.
Jeez.
That's nearly 20%
nuts.
of your salary cap because it's at what, 81.5 right now?
Yeah.
That's nearly a quarter of your cap space that you can't use.
Jeez.
But here's the thing, though, and a lot of people are going to look at that and wonder, why are you praising this? I actually think this was a good move. Because if you really want to think about it, right, Bill Guerin, I think, he's not thinking about 3 or 4 years down the line. I think he's thinking about right now, the immediate future. You're looking at the expansion draft, and, you look at the contracts of Parise and Suter. Both of them had no movement clauses, which would have meant that unless they were willing to waive them, Minnesota would have been forced to protect those guys in the expansion draft. Now, I don't know if they had any younger forwards or defensemen that they would rather protect over those guys. I'm assuming that there was options out there. But now, I mean, you buy out Parise and Suter, you get rid of two veterans who really helped out your locker room. But at the end of the day, you're able to protect more of these younger players that you have. You don't have to worry about leaving certain players out in the open. I'm not mentioning names right now because I can't think of any names off the top of my head that would be left unprotected anyway. But I mean, I do think that this was the right path to go down, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with the cap space situation. At least it's only a span of like 2 or 3 years, though, that this is really going to go on. It's not going to be like a long, long time, but it's still going to be difficult to kind of maneuver around these certain cap obstacles. And I don't know if you knew that, by the way, the whole 14.7 million dead cap thing. So, but definitely something that it'll be tough to work around, but we'll see what happens. Should we move on now? You want to get into Dominic Ducharme with the Montreal Canadiens?
Sure.
So we'll get into that. After taking the Habs to the Stanley Cup final this year, Dominic Ducharme is now the full-time head coach of the Montreal Canadiens. I'm trying to pull up the details right now, but I believe it is a 3-year deal. Yeah, it is a 3-year contract, so he'll be under contract until 2024. Andrew, a lot of people were kind of skeptical about Ducharme as an interim head coach, but obviously he pushed the right buttons. He allowed the Canadiens to kind of unlock their potential in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They got all the way to the Stanley Cup final, and now he's their full-time head coach. Do you think this was the right move for the Canadiens?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I really don't think there was, much other options. I'm not saying that, they had to do this, but I mean, seeing the way that, he handled this team, after I forget who was our last head coach. Was it Julian?
I don't know. I want to say it was.
All right, well, either way, but I mean, he's still a good head coach. I mean, obviously, he did just take his team to the Stanley Cup final, and I think he did get a little unlucky, playing against Tampa. I think really any other team that they played, I'm not going to say that they would have won, but it would have been a much closer series in my opinion. I think if they faced the Isles, it would have been a very good series. I mean, I don't know what it would go to, but I would say at least 6 games. But I mean, yeah. I mean, I like it. I mean, do you know any details about it? How long and how much money?
I know it's a 3-year deal. I don't know how much he's making now. But yeah, I'm not too sure about that.
All right. Well, a 3-year deal, it's not bad. I think it gives you enough time, to see if you do want to keep them longer than that. Once the 3 years is up, I think in 3 years they'll probably still be a playoff team. I mean, depending on what the divisions are looking like next season. I don't know if they're going to go back to what they were in 2019 or what they were this past season. So, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? But I mean, I like the deal.
I think it's okay. I mean, I don't know if they're going to be a playoff team next year, to be completely honest with you, because as we're going to get into in a little bit, there is a certain big name free agent from the Canadiens that's set to hit the open market. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. But I don't know. I mean, I like the fit of Ducharme in Montreal. I think he kind of, he knows the group very well by now. I think he really, again, I mean, he pushed all the right buttons, kind of. He was able to help the Habs really just unlock their full potential and really just allow them to play their game. And, you saw it on a run that really lasted from, I would say, I'll mark it at game 5 against the Leafs in the first round. They blew through games 5 through 7 to knock out the Leafs. Then they just ran through the Winnipeg Jets. Vegas gave them a little bit of trouble, but nothing that they couldn't handle. And then they just ran into a juggernaut in the Tampa Bay Lightning. So, it's kind of, it sucks to see the way that it ended for the Canadiens, but at the end of the day, I do think Ducharme is the right fit there. So, but speaking of Montreal, I don't know if you heard of this, by the way. Shea Weber, a little bit of news on that. So supposedly the Canadiens won't be protecting Shea Weber in the expansion draft, and this is following medical reports on a thumb injury. I believe it's a thumb injury, and I saw a report on it the other day. I can't remember where I found it, but this is a quote from Elliot Friedman of Sportsnet. Shea Weber, the Canadiens, the NHL, and the NHLPA are doing their due diligence, I should say, on the captain's medical situation and future. He's been plagued with a left foot / ankle problem that's really threatened his career. He's also played this postseason with an injured thumb that kept him out at the end of the regular season. And the quote goes on to say, Weber's medical history creates a very legitimate case for him to go on long-term IR if he cannot play again, but the league must make that determination and the process is underway. So, wow, that's a lot to unpack, especially after coming so close and losing all the way in the Stanley Cup final. Andrew, your immediate thoughts on what's going on with Shea Weber?
Yeah, I mean, it's something you really don't want to see, to really any player. Obviously any injury is, a bad injury. So, I mean, I think for Montreal, if Seattle does take him and, he does play, I don't think it would be significant. It would probably be. I would be a little pissed off. I mean, if he does end up playing, but I mean, if they do take him and he doesn't, then it's good for Montreal. They won't have to keep his cap space anymore. But I mean, again, it's just something you really don't want to see, in today's game or just in general at all. So, I mean, but for Weber, I don't know if he's dealt with many injuries in his past. I mean, I think a couple, probably in the most recent year, he might have dealt with something. But I mean, again, it's just something you really don't want to see. So, wishing all the best to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm not even looking at it from a playing standpoint. I'm looking at it more as, Montreal is losing such an important veteran leader. They're losing, obviously, their captain. You obviously never want to see this happen to anybody, let alone a really respected veteran in Shea Weber. And, it sucks to see this happen. I'm just wondering what the severity of his injuries are. I mean, obviously they have to be bad enough where he's, his playing life is in jeopardy right now. So, I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see what happens, as more information kind of comes out right now. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, this isn't really the thing that I want to take away from this, but who do you think would replace Weber if he couldn't play the rest of his career anymore? Do you think the Canadians have a guy who would want to, not who would want to, but who do you think the Canadians are kind of keeping their eye on right now in terms of who could be a replacement captain?
I mean, honestly, I really can't think of anyone off the top of my head, right now. I mean, I just don't think, I'm not saying that any of them aren't fit for the captain role. I just don't think they're not fit for the captain role as of right now. I mean, you could make an argument for Jeff Petrie. I think maybe an argument for Brendan Gallagher, who, is signing, who's signed till, I believe, 26, 27. Possibly he could be the captain, but I just don't see him as a captain, Don't get me wrong. I think he's a great player. He's one of the most hardworking players in the NHL. Excuse me. But I mean, I think they would probably have to give, say, another year or two to name another captain. I mean, I don't think anyone could just be the captain of, the most successful NHL franchise of all time. I think you have to really earn, that letter on your chest. So, I mean, I really can't think of anyone off the top of my head. Again, maybe Jeff Petrie, maybe Brendan Gallagher right now. But I want to hear if you have any, possible replacements.
I'm trying to think. I mean, if I had to guess, I would think the front runner would be Brendan Gallagher. Just based on all the things that he's been through with the Canadians. He's been there for a long time. You know what? I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball at you. Carey Price. Why not?
I mean,
goalies aren't allowed to wear the C per se, but it's happened before.
And with Luongo, I believe Luongo was the last to technically wear the C on his chest. But, I mean, I think if the goalies could, I think he would have been captain of this team long ago. I mean, who was their last captain before Weber? Pacioretty, right, I think? Yeah,
I think so.
Pacioretty, yeah. So, again, not everyone, has the opportunity to wear the C on, the Montreal Canadiens jersey. But, I mean, me personally, I don't see anyone wearing it, right now. I'd say maybe 2, maybe 3 years they could, add a captain. But I would probably have to say Brendan Gallagher, if I were to choose one.
I think that's a solid choice. But, again, obviously we're hoping that everything's okay with Shea Weber. We're hoping that first of all, he doesn't miss too much time, and second of all, he is able to come back at one point or another. But again, we'll kind of have to wait and hope for the best with that. So we're gonna move on here. We got another kind of original 6 team to get to. This is more of an Eastern Division team, so we'll be able to focus on this a bit more. Brandon Carlo is re-signed on a 6-year deal with the Boston Bruins at a $4.1 million average annual value. Andrew, I don't know about you, but I'm a big fan of this deal for the Bruins, especially with the way that Carlo's really kind of come into his own as a really solid defensive defenseman. So, what are your thoughts on this deal for not just Brandon Carlo but for the Bruins?
Yeah, I mean, I love this trade. If I'm any Boston Bruins fan right now, I mean, you're signing him for 6 years, just over $4 million, which I think is a steal. For Carlo, he's a very big, solid defenseman who can have some offensive upside, whenever he really feels like it. But I mean, I don't know. I really can't I can't say much about this as long as just, I like it. I mean, but you also have to sign Charlie McAvoy next year. So, I mean, signing him for just over $4 million, I think this is a great deal. I mean, I don't think there's, many defensemen, like Brandon Carlo in this league who are, big, strong, fast, like who play basically like Brandon Carlo. So, I mean, I'm trying to look at his stats right now. I mean, he doesn't have the greatest offensive production, but I mean, he can if he really wanted to. He's got that big body. He's got a very, very hard shot. Probably one of the hardest shots in the league. But I mean, I think it's just a great deal.
I'd have to agree with that, and I think one thing that a lot of people are kind of, thinking about as a side note anyway, and I think it should be thought about. This is a deal that I think the New York Islanders should be paying attention to a little bit, mainly because they have a guy named Adam Pelech waiting in the free agency. Obviously he's waiting for a new contract. I think they'd use this Brandon Carlo deal as kind of like a template, if you will, in terms of what Pelech could get. Because, I mean, if we're looking at the way that Carlo and Pelech play, I mean, I think they're very similar in terms of, how they play. Carlo might have a bit of an edge in terms of, the offensive standpoint, but I do think both of them are very solid in terms of, just playing solid overall defensive hockey. So, it'll be cool to see what happens with Brandon Carlo in the future. I do think that he's a very good young piece for this Boston Bruins team. Now I think the one thing that they have to do, and if I'm the Bruins anyway, is kind of getting, increasing the depth on your blue line, I guess is what I'm trying to say. With Boston, I think their depth on defense has been a little bit of an issue, and obviously re-signing Brandon Carlo helps with that. But now, if I'm Boston, I'm really looking to kind of bolster my blue line. I'm really looking to just, get a few more big names on the blue line if I'm the Bruins. So we'll wait and see what happens with that. But now I guess we're going to move on here. And speaking of free agency, we do have I grouped it into several big names set to hit the free agency market because there's a lot to talk about. So as of right now, we're going to get right into it. We got Zach Hyman of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Alex Edler of the Vancouver Canucks, Philip Deneau of the Montreal Canadiens, Nick Foligno of the Toronto Maple Leafs, that's still weird to say, and Gabe Landeskog of the Colorado Avalanche, all currently expected to hit the free agency market. Andrew, I would ask you who the biggest surprise on this list is, and I already think I know who you're going to say, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Who's the biggest surprise on this list and why?
Zach Hyman.
Huh. I thought Nick Foligno. I thought he would have been a career Leaf.
No, I mean, I think we can both agree that, it's probably Gabriel Landeskog. I mean, he's been the captain of that team for a while. At one point he was the youngest captain in NHL history, with the Avalanche. So, I mean, to see him, possibly walk away from the Avs, it's definitely shocking. We have a question here from John Chinsky, asking where he's going. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of teams that I think are interested in him. To name a few, I believe it is the Golden Knights, the Panthers, Lightning, Leafs, Isles, and the Blues. So, I mean, I think really any of those teams you could, have a good fit in. I mean, some of the teams I probably don't understand. I don't think the Leafs would probably be able to sign him. I don't think Tampa would be able to sign him, with their cap issues. I mean, depending on what the Islanders do with their cap, they could possibly.
If he takes a discount, then it's possible.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the only two teams that I can really see him going to is either staying with the Avs or going to the Blues. I mean, I think he fits well with the Blues. I think his play style, with the Blues, I think it just fits right in. He's got that tough, he's got that grittiness to his game, but he also has a lot of skill to his game. Obviously him playing with Mikko Rantanen and Nathan MacKinnon obviously improve his game, and he improves their game tremendously. So I mean, where do I think he's going? Personally, I think he's going to stay with the Avs, but I mean, anything could really happen.
I'm not sure, to be honest. I mean, I don't think it ever, if you had to ask me about this a few months ago, I don't think I would have said that it would have gotten to this point. I've heard that the Blues are the front runner right now to land him. I think, let me just look this up really quickly. I know Landeskog has a very good relationship, with one of the Blues players. I don't know who that is currently, but as we learn more, we'll obviously pass it on. I think he'd be a good option for the Islanders. I mean, I don't know if they'll be able to sign him. I'm just pointing out what I think, kind of where I think Landeskog would fit into the lineup. I think he'd be a good option to play on that first line with Anders Lee and Matt Barzal. I think that would make a pretty good line. I mean, granted, it's going to be no comparison to the current line mates he has with Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen, but I mean, if you look at the games that Anders Lee and Matt Barzal play, it's a little similar to the way that Rantanen and MacKinnon play. I mean, Rantanen obviously is a lot more skill and finesse than Anders Lee is, but MacKinnon and Barzal are two of the best playmakers in the game right now, so you're still going to be playing with a good playmaker if you come to the Islanders. I mean, I'm going to sound biased for talking like this, but I mean, it'll really it's going to be a long off season, I think, for Gabe Landeskog, a long week, I should say, with free agency set to officially kick off in around 12 days, I believe. One name that I really want to get to here, and I don't understand like what the cause for him leaving is. What Philip Deneau. I thought he was a good fit in Montreal.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he had the greatest Stanley Cup playoffs with the Montreal Canadiens, but I mean, I really like him overall as a player. He's one of the best defensive forwards in the game today. I'm not going to compare him to like a Patrice Bergeron or something like that, but I would definitely say he's definitely in one of the top tiers in defensive forwards. I mean, if I were to give Bergeron, I guess, number one ranking, I definitely put him in, the ranking below him. So, I mean, I really like Philip Deneau. I mean, I think he was a very, very good fit, for the Montreal Canadiens. But, seeing him, go to free agency, testing free agency, I mean, it's definitely weird to see. I mean, I think there's definitely a lot of teams that, are looking at him. He may not be, a top guy, like a Gabriel Landeskog or, like a Zach Hyman. But, I mean, he's definitely a solid key player. He's definitely a role player, for any team. I mean, if I'm the Rangers, I would definitely look into him, definitely talking to him, see if he would like to sign. He's very good defensive forward. So, I mean, who knows? But, yeah, it's definitely shocking to see.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. Before we move on here, I want to get your predictions really quickly. So we're going to go through the list. Hyman, Edler, Deneau, Foligno, and ending off with Landeskog. You have to predict where all of these guys are going to go.
Oh, you're making me do this. All right. I'm
going to do it too. It's okay. I'm not just going to make you do it.
All right. Give me one by one then.
Okay. We'll start with Hyman.
All right. So Hyman is a very interesting player, I feel like, just because I feel like there's a lot of teams who are interested in him. And, I feel like he could probably sign with anywhere. But, I mean, I think he's going to stay in Canada, but I think he's going to go to Vancouver.
I also have him going to Western Canada, but I have him playing with us with two certain Hart Trophy winners. I think he goes to Edmonton. I think he'd make a good fit for Edmonton. I think that's what Edmonton's looking for. They're really looking to kind of bolster their forward depth right now. And a guy like Zach Hyman, I think, would not only fit well with the way that Edmonton plays, but I think he would do a good job at really just making sure that Edmonton has a deep team going forward. So
I like it.
Andrew says Vancouver. I say Edmonton. Let us know what you think about Hyman. We're going to move on. Alex Edler.
Alex Edler. How old is Edler right now? I'm gonna look this up.
Good question.
Alex Edler. He's gotta be like mid-30s. He's 35. I'm gonna be honest. You ready? I'm gonna be 100% real with you. I think he retires.
Really?
I think he retires. I think he wants to be a Vancouver, Canuck for life. I mean, I just don't think Vancouver wants to sign him to a deal. I mean, obviously, they had the core three of, him and then the Sedin twins, back when, Vancouver was in their prime. So, I mean, I think Vancouver has a special place in his heart. I don't think he would like to sign with another team, so I think he retires.
Interesting. I know I was talking about the Bruins looking to add some depth on defense before, so could Alex Edler be the guy? I mean, I think him, you could kind of group, who's the defenseman in Nashville? Ekholm, Matthias Ekholm. You could definitely throw him in there. So I if I had to pick, I think Edler goes to Boston. So, we'll move on here. We got Phillip Danault.
Phillip Danault. Oh, goddamn. I mean, I don't know, because I haven't really heard a lot, of, Danault's, could possibly be going here and there. But, I mean, if I'm trying to think of a team, I'm trying to look at some teams right now. I mean, I think Colorado. I think he would be a good fit for Colorado, especially if Landeskog is, not planning on signing back with them. That's just probably about $6 or $7 million of cap space that's going to be free, and I don't think he would ask for that much money. Maybe like a 4 or 5 year deal. So I'm going to say Colorado.
Interesting. I don't know what makes me feel this way. I think he goes to Detroit.
How did I know you were going to say that?
I don't know what it is. I think this is more, and I don't mean to say this in a bad way. I think Danault is looking to kind of increase his role as a center, and I don't think he's going to do that with the Montreal. He's not going to do. Where I do fit in well. You're not having the greatest year by your standards, right? You can trade Danault at the deadline and get assets back for him. And even if he does wind up playing well, you can keep him and move on with him in the future. I do think Danault would help improve the Red Wings team defense. It's not very good right now. But I mean, a guy like Phil Danault, it'll be hard to see him leave Montreal, but I feel like Detroit would definitely be a team that could use his services for sure. So we're going to move on. Nick Foligno.
I'm going to be honest. I think he goes back to CBJ. I think, he was the captain there for a long time, and, I think he really wants to go back there. And I know I'm pretty sure there was an interview saying if he were to go back, if there was, a chance he would. And I think he said, there's definitely a possibility. So
I also think he leaves the Leafs, but I don't think he returns to Columbus.
Actually, give me 1 second. Someone at my door. I got to be back. All right.
Okay. Well,
I don't know
I'll
who it
talk
is.
for now.
Go ahead. I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, while Andrew's doing that, I think he goes to Minnesota. I think Minnesota would be a good fit for Nick Foligno. It's been rumored that he wants to go to Minnesota for a little while. And, I think it would be interesting to see kind of what happens with the whole Minnesota Wild situation. I think Minnesota is another team that's really looking to add depth up front. And I do think that Nick Foligno would be able to do that for a team like the Minnesota Wild. Another interesting thing that's really going to, it might tip the scale, it might not. But Nick Foligno's brother, Marcus, he plays in Minnesota right now with the Wild. So whether or not maybe Marcus kind of entices him to come to Minnesota to really, to play a bigger role on a Minnesota Wild team that has a lot of potential. It'll kind of, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. But I think at the end of the day, it's hard to see Nick Foligno not re-sign with the Leafs. I think he was a good fit in Toronto. With Columbus, I definitely think it's possible, but I'm not sure. Columbus looks like
Come back. Sorry.
It's okay. Columbus looks like they kind of want to go in a younger direction right now, so I don't know if Foligno would be the best option for them, but we'll kind of keep the options open as they come in. I don't know if you heard me. I said Nick Foligno. I think he's going to the Minnesota Wild.
To the Wild. Okay, I like that.
So, and if you want to hear my explanation, you can just listen to the podcast
fine.
over it
Don't
as it happens. We're gonna end off here really quickly. Landeskog.
Said it before. I think he's gonna stay with the Avs. Actually, no, I lied. Blues.
The one pick that we agree on, I think he goes to the Blues. I think it's just it. I know that the rumors have kind of spread that the Avs are kind of trying to reconnect with him and re-up their offer that they had. But I think that sometimes with contract negotiations, when players' emotions start to get involved, it really begins to kind of tip the scale one way or another. And I think with Landeskog, I don't think he's happy with the way that the negotiations have gone necessarily. I do think St. Louis would be a good fit for him too, so we'll keep our options open with that. Really quickly, we do have two more pieces of news to get into. We might run a little bit over the time, but that's okay. Florida Panthers buying out defenseman Keith Yandle. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, very interesting. I mean, I think I saw a stat that said ever since he joined the league, I believe he had the most power play points for defensemen. I believe he joined the league in 06, 07, around there. So, I mean, honestly, I really don't like this move. I mean, I think the Panthers do have a very good, solid defenseman core, and, Keith Yandle was definitely a part of it. You have Aaron Ekblad. You had who just had a very good season for them for defensemen. Yeah, Mackenzie Weegar.
Yeah.
I think he was very good, but I mean, I think Keith Yandle really helped him out on the power play. He's a very offensive defenseman. For the Panthers, may not be the best defensive choice. If you need a defensive player out there, but I mean, I think he's still a solid defenseman overall. So. It'd be interesting to see, where he ends up. I believe he probably signed a 1 year, $1 million deal with some team, maybe $2 million. I'm not 100% sure.
Where I do think he would make a good fit, and I mentioned this before with Edler, and I'm going to mention it again with Yandle. Boston. I'm pretty sure he's from Massachusetts. Will be a good fit for the Bruins. That he's a Boston kid. He's from Boston.
I think that would definitely be a good fit for them.
So, we never know. It would definitely be a good option for him. So, we're going to finish it off here really quickly. We're already over our time, so we're kind of just going to get into our last topic. New Jersey making a trade late last night to acquire defenseman Ryan Graves from the Colorado Avalanche. Colorado gets back forward Mikhail Maltsev and a 2021 second-round pick in return. Thoughts on this move?
I love this deal if I'm any Devils fan right now. I mean, you're getting a very, very young, solid defenseman in Ryan Graves, who has only improved, his past couple seasons, with the Avalanche. But I mean, if I'm the Avalanche, I'm pretty sure this is a trade, try to get cap space, because I don't know if Ryan Graves is an RFA right now. He might be. Do not quote me on that. I'm going to look real quick. Oh, that's not where I wanted to go. New Jersey Devils. He's going to be a free agent in 23-24, but he is making $3 million. So obviously this is an attempt to try to keep Landeskog, on the team. I think if they do end up keeping Landeskog, I think this is a great deal for the Avalanche. But I think if they don't, it's not necessarily bad. But I mean, I think they would have obviously liked to keep Graves. But if I'm a Devils fan, I really love this. I love this trade.
I don't even think it's the fact that trying to keep Landeskog. I think it's the fact that if they didn't move on from a guy like Ryan Graves, they probably would have lost him in the expansion draft.
That's true. Yeah,
you got to protect Makar. You're gonna have to protect him. Actually, wait.
No, they don't have to protect
Makar. Be exempt?
Yeah, Makar's exempt.
So I'm trying to think. Well, they would have had to protect Girard. Taze probably would have been protected, I think. I don't know who the third one would be, but yeah, I mean, I honestly think that they would have lost him in the expansion draft if they hadn't traded him. So, I do think this is a good move for the Devils. They definitely upgraded their defense with this move. I think this was kind of the trade that they were going for last year when they traded for Ryan Murray. That didn't really work out too much, and now obviously they have their guy in Ryan Graves. So, yeah, I think we got through everything we got to get through. I like that move for the Devils. Did you give a grade for that trade, by the way, or?
Let's see. What did I give it? I'm trying to look right now.
I would give it an A.
I think if I'm the Devils standpoint, I think I gave it an A, and for the Avs standpoint, I give it a B+.
That's not too bad. All right. So with that said, I think we got through everything we had to get through this week. We're likely going to be back next Friday. By then, we'll be able to talk about the picks for the expansion draft. We'll be able to talk about the schedule, which is set to come out next Thursday. So there's going to be a lot more news to talk about. So, with that said, Andrew, you got anything you want to say to the people before we go?
Just stay safe, be well, and don't do drugs, kids.
Thank you, Andrew, for that information. Very cool. With that said, that's Andrew Mauricio. I'm Carter Bentavenga. We're going to get going for the night. Talk to you later, guys. And everyone, enjoy the next week. Enjoy the expansion draft. It's going to be fun. So thanks again for listening, everybody. We will see you next Friday.